Welcome to the Gen Z Show. I'm your host of the Gen Z Show, James McLamb, and we're proud and excited to have you as our guest. This week, I'm joined by co-host from Tarboro, North Carolina, Mr. Caden Robinette. How are you doing, Caden?
I am doing wonderful, Mr. McLamb. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. He and I are patiently waiting to see if there's any kind of storms going to hit eastern and central North Carolina. They've been pronouncing them all day, but none have occurred. Which is good. Which is really good because you and I have had a great interview this afternoon with Miss Shanna Dorion. She is an amazing person. I have known Shanna for almost 7 years now. Her and I are both Ziegler Legacy certified trainers, and I met her through that process. But more importantly, she is a corporate trainer, which she works with corporations on helping corporate executives, people that are in the business and business world, to show up with excellence, present their best self, to show up with confidence and class. And we invited her today to speak to Generation Z and millennials about the importance of showing up with excellence, of presenting your best self. And what an energy-packed interview we have for you today. Caden, what is something that our audience can look forward to learning during this upcoming interview?
Right, yeah. When I was sitting there, she just came right out of the gate, just really energy. You'll learn a lot about just like going into an interview, just going into throughout your daily lives. Just little small individual things that you can carry with you that will lead to success, even just right down the road.
She is really has a passion for helping people, and now especially for helping young people to show it with excellence, to come out in a positive light. I really don't want to waste your time anymore listening to us talk about it. We're going to jump right into this interview with Ms. Shanna Dorion with talking to us about how to show up with excellence. So let's go straight to the interview. Shanna, welcome to the Gen Z Show. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited that you and I get to connect. It's been a while since we've seen each other. We've talked frequently through social media and on the phone, but one-on-one, being able to connect, it's probably been several years since you. Hey, and for our audience, you're wondering how we know each other. We are both Ziegler Legacy certified trainers that have gone through the Zig Ziglar program. And I actually met her at her class that she went to. I was an alumni that was helping at that class. And that was, how long ago was that? That was 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think that was probably about close to 6 years ago. I think that was back in 2014.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Coming up on 7 years. Don't say that.
Right.
It makes time fly so fast.
Right.
So we're really excited to be able to have you with us today. But our audience may not be familiar with you. Some of the Ziegler folks who watch our show pretty regularly obviously are, and they're excited and they're cheering for us. But would you mind introducing yourself to the Gen Z audience, please?
Absolutely. My name is Shanna Dorion. I am a corporate trainer, speaker, and coach, and I specialize in helping professionals polish and perfect their people skills so that they can show up with excellence and attract the opportunities, the clients, and the results that they desire to have. So in a nutshell, that is who I am. That is what I do. In addition to the Ziegler Legacy certification, I also am one of the only in my area certified corporate etiquette trainers. So I specialize in working with professionals to help them, make sure that they're showing up with excellence and presenting themselves in a manner that is polished and professional.
I love that comment that you made, that tagline of showing up with excellence. I wrote that down on my notes here. So obviously our audience, typically who we give this to, is a younger audience, from mid-teens up in the late 20s. Why do you think that it's important for them to learn these types of things that you're learning of showing up with excellence?
Right. I think right now, so much of the emphasis is on social media. So much of the emphasis is on being an influencer. And I think that people have forgotten the basics and what we really need in order to connect and in order to stand out in a positive light. So I think that it is important that people practice professionalism and is aware of etiquette, especially if they want to show out and attract, those opportunities that they desire. Right now, the easiest way for you to show out, which is what I tell people, is to simply present yourself in a manner that appears to be polished and in a manner that appears to be kind and friendly. And we don't see that much of that right now. I think being rude has been glamorized.
Mm.
Saying what you feel has been glamorized. So just stepping back and thinking before you speak and stepping back and thinking about, it's the way I'm presenting myself, my facial expressions, my clothes, am I getting the right kind of attention? If we just step back for a couple of minutes and make a few minor tweaks and do those very important things, I think that it'll open the door to a lot of opportunities and save us from a lot of regret. Does that answer your question?
I love that answer. I love that answer. Polished, being kind, being friendly, standing out in a positive light. This really tags onto a recent podcast that we had where we were talking to a corporate trainer as far as presentation skills and public speaking. And he was talking about the value of being able to express yourself publicly, but just presenting yourself on presentation skills. You take it a step further and say, hey, it's just not that. It's the entire picture. Am I reading that right?
It is the entire picture. So let me just share this. Lots of times we hear people say people shouldn't judge. Guess what? People judge. And guess what? You judge. I judge. I'm not proud of it, but that is by nature. That's just how we're created. That's just who we are. And so we have to be very cautious that everything about us, the way that we look, our facial expressions. And when I say the way that we look, I'm not talking about skin color. I'm not talking about bone structure. I'm just talking about, do we look like we've put some effort into our appearance? Do we look like we're dressed like we really care about the people we're meeting, or like we're, about to approach $1 million opportunity? So I feel like the way that we present ourselves is a direct reflection of how important we think the people are who we are meeting with. And let me stop right there because there's something else that I want to add, but I want to find out if you all have any questions or if y'all agree with what I just said.
Well, I wrote down again, care about the people we were meeting. I was going to follow up on that. Do you see that is really, it's kind of a lack of respect that we have for other people, that when we don't show up in our best light or the best light we can for the situation?
It says a lot about respect. If we respect someone and if we want them to respect us, and if we care about what they think about us, then we show up differently than we would if we didn't respect a person or if we didn't care what that person thought about us. I think it has a lot to do with respect. If we go to an interview, regardless of what job, James, you're interviewing for, if you dress like you mean business and if you dress like you really are serious about that opportunity, then they will look at you like you're serious for the opportunity. If you show up and there's no effort in the way that you look or in your attire, they'll think of it as you've disrespected their time and that you're not really serious about the opportunity.
Do you think this is a generational thing? I mean, otherwise, why do we have such a hard time convincing youth, Generation Z, early millennials? Late millennials are getting it now, but they've had to go through that trial of experience, I'm sure. Do you think it's generational that they're just not?
No, I really don't. I think that we live in the influencer age, or the age of the influencer. And so right now, there's such a blur in the lines with expectations and what's appropriate and what is inappropriate. So these influencers lots of times are entertainers, and they're not they don't have to go to an interview where someone is looking at them and judging them and deciding whether or not I'm going to give this person a job. They're in the entertainment world, and the entertainment world has its own set of expectations and, likes and those types of things. But we are in the real world. And I think even the more seasoned generation, we've gotten a little bit laxed with how we present ourselves because we feel like nobody else is doing it. So why should I do it? Forgetting that if you take that one extra step and put that extra effort into your appearance, your attire, that it'll make a world of a difference because you're going to stand out from everybody else. So I really don't think that it's a generational thing. I think that people have gotten laxed, and we're having to remind even the most seasoned people that this is important. So I think everybody could benefit from this reminder.
So what would you say to someone who says, hey, but we want folks to feel comfortable, so they need to come as they are and come as they feel?
Right.
What would you say to that versus, hey, you need to present your best self?
So the only place that I've heard come as you are is when we're going to church, right? And people still judge you when you go to church. So all of this come as you are stuff, I think when we're dressed laxed, when we're dressed much more casual, our approach to things are in a more casual, more laxed light. If you do the research, you'll even see that on dress down days, productivity is not as good as it could be. When we dress up, it does something for our confidence. It does something for our mood. And not only does it do something for us, it changes a person's perception. So within 5 to 7 seconds of meeting someone, we will decide whether or not we like them, respect them, or we'll take them seriously. That says you don't even have to open your mouth for a person to decide whether or not they like you. They make that snap judgment, they form that snap opinion based on how you are presenting yourself, be it body language, be it the way that, if it looks like you just rolled out of bed and came to work, if it looks like your clothes are all wrinkly, then they're going to make those snap decisions about you that say you're not competent, that say you're not smart, that say you're questionable, that say they can't take you seriously. All of those things matter. So to them that say, I want you to come as you are, I think that they need to really define that, because coming as you are, if it's not coming as your best self, will change the whole aspect of the way that we conduct business, how we serve our customers, how we feel about ourselves, the people that we work with, and our customers as well.
What would you say to the person who says, hey, if they can accept me for the way that I look and want to look, then it's on them. It's not on me to present myself better. It's on them to accept me for who I am. Because, that's what you're going to hear. That's right. Exactly what I'm going to hear from someone, hey, you need to probably look a little bit better. Well, it's on them if they don't like the way that I'm looking here. You've ever heard that?
I have. I say it's an excuse not to show up. It's an excuse. It's an excuse to not do the right thing. It's an excuse not to hold yourself accountable. Yeah, people shouldn't judge, but like I said earlier, people do judge. And I think that if we want people to treat us differently, take us seriously, then we've got to take ourselves seriously enough to get up. And so here's what I think about just about every morning when I'm preparing for work. Now, on the weekends, it's a different story. But when I'm preparing for work, when I'm preparing to meet with someone, when I'm preparing to go on some type of business call, or even if I'm just prepared to go and sit and have a conversation with some people that I met, with some connections that I've made, even if no matter how acquainted I am with them, I always prepare myself in the morning like I'm about to meet that $1 million client, or I'm about to come across that $1 million opportunity. So important, because if we get up every morning saying I might meet $1 million client, or I might come across that $1 million opportunity, that will allow us to to get up extra early and put some effort into our appearance and attire and prep for the day like we mean business. So to say, take me as I am, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I get this whole authentic piece, but authenticity is not just going how you feel. Authenticity is operating with a spirit of excellence and showing up as your best self.
So
This is why I reached out to you.
how do you approach different industries? I mean, a corporate industry is going to be a lot more suit and tie, and that's just showing up. But when you go to a more mechanic or an agricultural industry, is Wrangler jeans and a pair of white t-shirt with your hat on backwards. So how do you kind of address the different industries?
Right. I love that question. So I'm all into doing research. I am so incredibly into doing research. We want to research that particular industry. For example, I have a friend of mine who was going to an interview at an oil field company and he wanted to go in Crocs. And I was like, are you kidding me? It doesn't matter if you're going, to be a trash technician somewhere. You should still be putting some effort into your appearance and your attire. Now, in this instance, you may be able to go with some starched down jeans and some boots and a very well pressed shirt with some buttons on the front, a long sleeve shirt, but we want to search, do our research, go to websites, see how the people in leadership carry themselves. And that's how we want to show up as well. Because let's just be honest here. Most people who would be going to a mechanic shop for an interview, they may go with a t-shirt and some jeans. The best way for you to stand out is to step it up a notch and make sure that when you go, it looks like you have put some effort into what you have on, you match, you're ironed, and there are no missing buttons. So we want to make sure that when we're showing up with a sense of professionalism and like we're really serious about the opportunity. It's not an excuse to go in tennis shoes. I will never tell a person go somewhere for an interview, no matter where you're going. It could be at a fast food restaurant. You still want to dress to impress. And that's what I'm going to say. I don't want to delve deep into the different specific industries, but no matter where you're going, you want to dress to impress, especially if you want to stand out. And it wouldn't be a suit and a tie at a mechanic shop, but if you wanted to go with a suit and a tie, you could go in a suit and tie. Or if you wanted to go with a button-down shirt, some slacks, and some boots, you'd be able to do that as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Caden is a junior right now, about to go into his senior year. So he's going to be doing a lot of interviewing over the next
Yes,
18
I've already
months.
actually already have about 2 or 3 interviews already lined up in the next coming month. Do you have any advice for someone like me going into, especially the Zoom, format? How do we, whenever I'm in these next upcoming interviews and scholarships, I've been taught my whole life, go in firm handshake, looking in the eye. Right now I'm looking at a camera. So like, what are some tips for people at my age, who are going in for scholarships, job interviews, college interviews, or anything likewise?
Be prepared. So do your best to prepare in advance and do the research in advance. You come across Colin as being, from what I can see based on this interview, as being polished. You come across as being sincere. That is so important. And you want to practice before you get to this interview. So sit back and think of some questions. You can Google some questions. What are the questions that you think they might ask you? And start practicing. Preparation is everything. So you want to make sure that you're prepared to answer the questions that they ask you. You want to make sure that you're not forgetting how to introduce yourself properly and confidently. That says so much. So even though we can't shake hands physically, we can still, try our best to make eye contact and with that camera, we can still introduce ourselves with a sense of confidence and class. Those things are still very important. Something else is when you get the person's name, you want to make sure, Colin, that throughout that conversation that you're using the person's name. Make that like a dialogue. And one thing that I'll say, especially because there's so much distraction going on when we are doing things via Zoom, right? We may be at home, we could maybe at school, maybe in an office. There's going to be some distraction. So it's important to make sure that you're in an area that is as quiet as possible. And that if we're planning on taking notes so that they don't think that we're being preoccupied by, doing this and not listening, you want to pre-position them to let them know that you'll be taking notes, or to ask them if you can take some notes. I think preparing, I think introducing yourself with boldness and confidence. I think letting them know in advance or asking them if you can take notes is so important. Using names is so important. And that genuine piece, that being sincere piece is so incredibly important. And going into it saying, I will be sincere, well, sincerely myself, and I'll show up as authentically as I can, which is not an excuse to not prepare. It's showing up as your best self will allow you to sit back, relax your shoulders, smile, be present with what's going on, and ask good questions. They love to come across someone who will ask those good questions. You'll stand out. So I am running my mouth because there's so much that I can share, and I don't want to overwhelm with information. So I'll stop right there.
No, I don't think you're overwhelming at all. I think that's
This
exactly.
is really good. It's really
Yeah, I
good
think so as
information.
well.
In fact, so I actually used to sit here and know all the time. I have keys on a keychain, so you sit here just rattle and rattle all day long. Eventually, I had to figure out if I just toss my keys across the room, I stop messing around. And additionally, I used to. So where I am is kind of rural area. We don't have internet services, And when we went to virtual, I went to a coffee shop, and every time I'd be on the meeting, it's a coffee grinder over and over and over again. Then I went to a library, and they told me to be quiet, so I wound up in the office. But when I was in those meetings, and when I was in, when I had that coffee shop, machine going on, oftentimes I would, lose my professionalism while I was in a meeting. So how do you, tell people who go through your program, how to recover your professionalism? I mean, you mentioned you got 5 to 7 seconds to make that decision. If it's a bad connotational decision, how do you, recover yourself if you mess up?
Right. So none of us, perfection is unrealistic. None of us are expected to be perfect. Nobody is exempt from making a mistake. Nobody. And no one expects you to not make a mistake, because they say if you're not making any mistakes, then you're not really doing anything at all. So I say the best way to recover is just to immediately get back into that being present with the conversation, that you've had. Or if somebody knocks on the door while you're doing something, if you just simply say, excuse me for a second, I'm so sorry. And you let the person know, I can't talk right now. And then you get back to it's because, like I said, nobody's looking for it to be perfect. They're looking for genuineness. They're looking for the way that you show up, and they're just looking for that connection. Now, if we continue to talk, or if you continue to be distracted, then there's an issue. But there's always an easy way to recover, and that simply is, and you don't even sometimes have to apologize for if you look somewhere else. You just try to get right back to that focus and that presence and stay on track. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So do you think that a lot of this lack of being able to present yourself in your best light, showing up with excellence, that Generation Z, that youth of today are struggling with, is a result of parents not, really being good instructors of that?
So I'm not a parent. So I really don't want to overgeneralize and say that is the case. I would say that there is a big emphasis on technical skills, technical abilities, STEM, and we've lost focus on what really matters, and that's building good connections. That's manners. And I think that we just need to get back to the basics and make sure that we're incorporating, those life skills, those people skills, and those character skills, in our training of our children, in our teaching of our students. I think that piece is a piece that cannot be forgotten, because it's evident right now. Even when you look on social media, nobody wants to sit down and listen to anyone else. Everybody kind of has their own opinion, and they don't care whose toes they step on or whose feelings they might hurt. They're just going to say what they want to say. So just making sure that we're making the people who we are around, making sure that we're advocates of thinking before you speak, and that it is important that we filter our words. I don't care what you have heard, putting a filter on your words is so important. And so we've got to get back to letting people know that these things matter. You can be a mathematician until you are blue in the face. You can be a scientist, you can be an IT person until you're blue in the face. But if you can't connect with the people that you work with, if you can't communicate effectively, then those technical abilities might get you the job, but your people skills and your ability to move up is what's going to allow you to keep that job and to move up in that position as well.
The reason that I reached out and connected with you is a struggle that I was having here at home with my middle child of wanting to show up with excellence. My oldest, completely different. She always tries to show her best. Probably she's student teaching right now in high school.
Right.
And that's a struggle into itself because of the virtual world that she's having to navigate that versus in person. But one of the things that she discovered real quickly is her first couple of days of being at this school, she was the nicest dressed non-principal in the school. The principal was dressed, but she was dressed nicer than all of the teachers. And she was like, "Should I dress yourself down?" And I said, "Well, what do you think?" And her response is that I want them to respect me, and I feel like I get more respect. She said, and for me, it's a bigger deal because my age and their age are so closely together. I want them to have that kind of respect for that. And so, we do see a dressing down of adults that are supposed to be mentoring youth in this regard. Mm-hmm. What would you say to encourage parents to really invest in this? Because I agree with you. I think folks are looking at it saying, I want Johnny and Susie to have great academic skills or great athletic skills, but they're missing, their presentation skills.
Right. We have to think long term, and we have to remember that relationships are super important. And if we don't have the support of people, if we don't have those good, positive relationships, with people, if we can't communicate effectively with people, if we don't know how to show up, it doesn't matter how book smart we are, we will never rise to the level that we can rise to if we don't have that one piece. I think it's holistic. I think that if we're focusing on one thing and not focusing on the other, then we're doing our children, our youth, our students a major disjustice, because that is what they need more than anything. Not just the ability to navigate a software or to solve a problem, but they also need the ability to be able to work with people and to be able to be respectable and respectful.
Ooh.
Super important.
Ooh, I love that. Respectable and respectful. I'm gonna write this down. So I love that. Is really good. I really like that. Hey, I want to put you on the spot then. What would be the first steps that you would recommend to a parent in helping their child really work on these soft skills, really work on showing up with excellence? You got a parent, they're watching this, they're like, Johnny and Susie, I messed up. They're 14 years old, 15 years old, and they don't understand what are the first steps I need to take?
Right. I would just have a conversation with my children and asking them, how do you feel when someone does this? How do you feel when someone acknowledges you? And how do you feel when someone doesn't acknowledge you? So I would have those types of conversations with them to get them to realize that when you walk into a room, the proper thing to do is speak to the people who are sitting in that room, to acknowledge those people who are sitting in a room. And so it's opening. How do you feel when someone doesn't acknowledge you versus how do you feel when someone does acknowledge? So calling to light, making them see how these things really do matter. And the golden rule is a big piece of that, treating people the way, and when I say, I hear a lot of treat people the way that they want to be treated. Well, you don't know how someone wants to be treated until you get to know that person. So until them, you treat them the way that you would want to be treated, or the way that you would want someone to treat your parents or your grandparents or your siblings. So it's that golden rule, talking to your children about the golden rule, and also, having some dialogue with them and allowing them to realize that it really does, having good manners and doing those simple things goes a long way.
I love it. Just starting it out in this conversation, I was really prompted to reach out to you. I'll tell this story. My daughter, my youngest daughter, is still in elementary school, and before she starts school every day, we come in, we'll have breakfast together, as we're and watch a little morning television. Well, the show that's on the morning television that we have started watching with her, and this is early in the mornings, is an old show, Leave It to Beaver. Caden, do you know what Leave It to Beaver is?
I have heard it. I have seen like one episode, but I cannot tell you anything about it.
Oh my. Well, they show up, those little boys that are on that show. And I know this was not indicative of everybody during this late 50s, early 60s time period, but everywhere they show up is in a coat and tie. They would wear a coat and tie to everything. Go to a school dance, they have to wear a suit. Go to travel on a plane or travel on a train, they wear a suit and stuff. And my wife and I were talking one day, and she said, where did we lose this respect for the things that we do? And instead now, when we get on planes and stuff, I've been seated across from folks that are wearing their bedroom shoes and pajamas because they want to take a nap and be comfortable. And I'm like, I don't want to see that.
Right.
I pay good money for this seat, not to have to sit there and watch you do this.
Right.
How did we lose this?
I don't know. And I mean, not only on planes, but you go into the local grocery store and you see people dressed in their pajamas. I would be incredibly embarrassed, to walk into a store with only clothes that you should be wearing inside of. It's like going to a grocery store in a nightgown. And so I think, and you asked this question earlier, and I'm going to go back to that. I think parents, I think teachers, I think people in position of leadership, I think people who are influencers, we need to be leading by example. So we can't change what other people are doing, but we can change what we are doing. And it starts with us. So we have the power to make a huge impact in our space, in our home, in our workplaces, at our schools. So I would say also, to start leading by example. If you want your children to be more mannerable, then you start, being more mannerable. And, right. I think things move like the waves, like things come in and out like the waves. I think eventually, when manners come back in style, then people will start to step their game up. But people are really not being held accountable like they should to step their game up. And it's evident when lots of times a person might think or might wonder, why can't I ever get ahead? Well, maybe if you did some of those few things, the little things that you're unwilling to do, then you would be, just those small little tweaks might open some doors that'll allow you to just get ahead. And those things are very important.
Then parents should be encouraged by what you're saying, because if their children would learn these, if they would teach this to their youth and they would embrace this and they show up in excellence, it is not going to be like we saw maybe 50 or 60 years ago where that was the norm. Now they're going to be the exception, and they're really going to really going to stand out in the crowd.
And in some places, obviously they'll get some ridicule, maybe from peers and stuff. And, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
Right.
But in the long term, like you said, think long term, they're going to be so much more successful in life.
I remember when I was little, my parents, they used to tell me, say sir, ma'am, to everyone you see. And it's gotten so instilled to me that I saw a 4-year-old girl the other day and I called her ma'am. And it's just like, they'll come up to me and they'll say, like, hey, like, don't call me ma'am, it makes you feel old. Don't call me sir, it makes me feel old. Like, I'm only like 2 years older than you, or some of these things. In fact, and so, but what's your thoughts on authority? Do you give the same level of respect to someone who's maybe like below you on the authority chain as someone who's above you?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're a mailroom clerk. It doesn't matter if you're a janitor. You want to treat people the same. You want to give the same level of respect that you would give to the CEO, to the person who's delivering the mail every day, or to the person who's taking out the trash every day. That says a lot about your character. And that is super, super important. And we never realize, we really don't understand that we have the power to either impress people or depress people by what we do. And so we don't know who's watching us. So we always want to make sure, and everybody is facing a storm. Everybody is facing some type of storm. When we treat people with respect, it's amazing what it does for their spirit and how it makes them feel. And that is what etiquette is all about. It's about, being considerate about others and offering others an opportunity to feel comfortable with talking to you and feel more relaxed with talking to you. And so that requires being respectful to those who are younger than us, those who are older than us, those who have higher positions than we do, and those who have positions, at the entry level positions, who may be behind us on the position ladder, if you will.
So you teach some. Go ahead, Kane.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book right now, and it is discussing about the story of success, like how does one become successful? What is the factors that go into it? And one thing they're talking about right now, where I'm at in the book, is that they're explaining that children who were raised to be authoritative, to be grab into you got an opportunity to take the moment, be authoritative, go there and be who you are. Whereas someone who maybe just be not as confident for themselves, not as authoritative, just don't make it as far because they don't grab the opportunities. So what is your advice for a parent who's maybe a brand new parent, someone who maybe has a child right now who is still a toddler, hasn't been able to talk yet, and is trying to figure out their parenting techniques that they are going to implement in the future years to set their child up for success in the future industries?
Right. I love that. Grab the opportunity. Continue to teach them to grab the opportunity, but grab it respectfully. Grab it respectfully. There are some people who will step on people to grab an opportunity, and that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to grab that opportunity, to utilize, the opportunities that you have in the most professional and respectful light. I think that is an awesome thing. I think sometimes we think, you have to be humble, and so you shouldn't be going for everything. I say, why not do both? Why not go for what you want and still be humble and respectful at the same time? Those things can coincide.
And you have courses in which programs in your organization in which you're working with you, teaching them these skill sets, correct?
Well, I used to work with high school students. I have several character education programs. I haven't done that recently, but I'm still able to do that if necessary. However, I have been working with the local college in my area, which is the second largest college in the state of Louisiana. I've been working with their students, their leadership, their students who are in leadership roles, and even their athletes on how to be pumped up and polished at the same time, or how to ace the interview, the secret sauce of how to ace the interview, how to refer to people. So, and respect. I also have character education classes on respect that needs to be taught. And so, yeah, I do have some things in place for college students who want to learn how to do those things. And if they're interested, they can email me. I'm more than happy to share with them the packages that I provide and a detailed description of all of the different workshops. My email address is Shanna, SHANNA, at bizknocks, BIZKNOCKS.com.
That was actually my next question, was how can they connect with you? So are there other places that they connect with you on social media? How would they reach out to you?
Yes, they can find me at Biz Knox on Facebook, and they can find me at Shanna Dorion, SHANNADORION on LinkedIn.
You'll see all those audience. If you'll go down in the show notes, you'll see links to all those. We'll put those in the show notes on our YouTube channel so that you'll have direct links to them, so that they'll have easy access to this going forward. So
there's one other thing that I'd like to share. So I want to, because of the fact that the audience that you are that you broadcast for, your audience of people, and the interviewing piece, because right now lots of people are interviewing for jobs. I want to share that the way that we speak is so important. And so the way that we talk to our friends sometimes might be a little bit too casual for the way that we speak to people who we're interviewing with. So we want to make sure that we are speaking with a sense of confidence, not cockiness. There's a difference there, that we're speaking with a sense of confidence, that we are enunciating all of our words, and that we're speaking slowly and audibly. Very, very important. And so if you want to remember all of those things, and if you want to go in and with that sense of confidence and authority and speaking slowly and audibly and clearly, I always encourage the interviewees to take a moment before the interview to get away from all the noise and do some breathing. Sit back, do some breathing, clear your mind so that when you enter your interview, you can, sometimes that slow, intentional or controlled breathing will lower that heart rate and those anxiety breaths that we sometimes take whenever we're nervous. And so it'll allow us to show up more relaxed so that we can be more confident and make the impressions that we want to make.
I love that. Love that. Shanna, thank you for being able to articulate the benefits and the reasons for being able to show up with excellence. I really felt passionate about this, having personal struggles with that, with youth that I deal with and I work with. And that it was kind of fortuitous that the same day that I was thinking about this, on LinkedIn, on one of your feeds showed up, and it was like, I know an expert in this. Why am I not reaching out? And thank you for being able to be our guest on the Gen Z show. And again, audience, go down, hit the links, follow her, especially follow her on LinkedIn. I'm gonna do a shout out to you. You do some extremely good tips on LinkedIn. That's some good quality things that you do on there. That if the youth are not having LinkedIn, it's worth going to, because you'll learn more there than you will the other social media channels. You can learn a lot more. So thank you for being our guest today.
My pleasure.
And audience, thank you guys for joining us this week. Make sure that you like and share this. Hey, and comment on it as well. Share it with your friends. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the Gen Z Show.